Canada and government providing drugs, it's no longer as woke as it used to be. It's being discredited. And one of the persons who started to discredit was Adam Zivo in the National Post, who for years has done all the hard research, and people are finally realizing and saying that it just doesn't work. But there's something new in the offing and more popular, and is saying that, Adam, help me with this, that it's somehow racist to criminalize some prescribed drugs.
Yeah, it's a
proscribed drugs.
It's a popular argument within the harm reduction world that it's racist to criminalize hard drugs like crystal meth, fentanyl, cocaine, crack.
How does anybody support that?
Well, there's a few different arguments. They say that drug decriminalization disproportionately impacts racialized communities, and that other racialized communities have a different cultural relationship with drugs. This argument, though, is historically illiterate. So, for example, East Asian communities have a lot of historical trauma with drug use. Let's not forget that in the 19th century, the British went to war to ensure that large amounts of opium were flooded into Chinese markets and essentially crippled the population there and caused widespread social instability. Right. So under the harm reduction narrative, the opium wars could be framed as, anti-colonial British warships saving the persecuted Chinese drug users from the Qing dynasty. When you look at today, the areas, the countries with the most lax drug laws are usually Western European or North American, they're disproportionately white. Whereas the harshest drug laws are in East Asia, right? Sharia law prohibits the use of mind-altering substances. So for someone to argue that it's racist to criminalize drugs, I mean, that's just completely historically illiterate. But then on top of that...
So why who's arguing that these days? I mean, in this woke society, but we're starting to say, well, a lot of that stuff that was talked about 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is baloney.
Well, they're essentially latching on to racial justice advocacy to push for a radical drug agenda that the communities that are being advocated for don't actually support. And it's hard to disprove their narrative because it's hard to get polling data that shows what communities actually believe.
You got some, though.
I did. So I actually commissioned a poll in BC back in the autumn of last year with a sample size of about 12,000 people. It was huge. And we were able to demonstrate that 13% of non-white British Columbians strongly agreed that it's racist to decriminalize drugs, while in contrast, around 43% strongly disagreed. So the number of people who disagreed, who felt like it was not racist to decriminalize drugs, was much, much higher than those who believed that it was. So we can see from this polling data that the overwhelming majority of non-white British Columbians think that criminalizing drugs is just fine.
I mean, but that makes sense.
Yep. And interestingly enough, of all the different ethnicities that we surveyed, Indigenous respondents were the only ethnic group that were more anti-drug than white Canadians.
Okay, save us from the white man. Adam Zivo, thank you very much. 3 minutes. To those of you who have subscribed and donated, a heartfelt thank you. You're keeping us on the air. If you're watching and you haven't, please try to do so, because 4 years ago we started this show because there needed to be independent analysis. Now more than ever, with the Online Harms Act. Once that gets into law, it's been passed once by the House, there are going to be hundreds of bureaucrats censoring the news in Canada, censoring this show. We need to keep it on the air. Thanks for your support.